Easy motor words I quote. I feel your ass passing out with my palms around your throat. But if you choke, you know there ain't no seeing tomorrow. Mama scream bloody murder cause it's time been borrowed. I feel no sorrow heartless since the day I was born. Live my life on the run, niggas is deadly when I swarm. I form, I'm modest, my crew was in it for child. Nigga calling the order, your ass is dead on the hour.
Thank you for joining me for episode number 17, Race and Astrology. We have a special guest today, but before I get started, I wanted to welcome Claudia back, who was absent for the microphone check show. How you been, Claudia?
Pretty good, Paul. Very happy that Mercury's not direct.
And as someone whose chart is Mercury dominant,
it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It's a good day for a podcast.
Yes, it is. Before we get started, one thing for anybody who's living in the Atlanta area, today's show is brought to you by Road Ready Mobile Oil Change. If you live in the Atlanta area, hit my boy Dave up. He will come to you, change your oil while you chilling in the house. You can hit Dave up at Dave84 at get/roadready.com or 770-882-5011. Now, with all the stuff going on with the George Floyd stuff and all the protests and the Black Lives Matter, race is really at the forefront. And I saw this brother posting some stuff and it caught my eye. So I reached out to him and I asked him if he could come on and chop it up with me for a little while. His name is Ever Reese. Hello, Reese. How you doing? Reese is with Cosmo Physics. All right. Who is Ever Reese?
First and foremost, I am a human being. I am a person who is interested solely in raising my own vibration and raising the vibration of others around me. I am a cosmophysician. That isn't a certain astrologer out of the school of cosmophysics. Cosmophysics means as above, so below, within, without. I follow the astrological teachings of the Grand Cosmocrat Ra Aku, the cosmophysician, and for the last about almost 15 years, I've set out to educate people about the cosmophysics school of astrology, but particularly Black people, young Black people, and Black women, who I feel have a lack of a true understanding of astrology and its place in life and how they utilize it to their benefit. So I want to make sure that they're properly educated in a system of astrology that they can immediately benefit from.
All right. Where'd you grow up?
Maryland.
What religion was you indoctrinated into?
Christianity, a little Islam, a little Judaism.
You was born into Christianity?
Yeah, I was born into a family where we have Christians, Muslims, Jews, and Moors.
So which one did you originally just...
My grandma was, what do you call that, Baptist, Christian. My dad, Muslim.
Which one was you feeling?
It don't matter. I bounced between both households. So, you know, when I was at my grandma, I went to church. When I was with my dad, I had to do salat. So,
how was that on the site?
For a kid, you know, it pissed me off because you're always under a different discipline, you know, a different set of rules. You gotta remember those rules and who you're dealing with. So, but as I got older, you know, it became very easy to balance and then, in a sense, manipulate.
Do you subscribe to any one of them?
That's a tricky question. What I will say to you is that I believe there's one creator. I believe that creator has manifested in a multiplicity of entities. So Christianity, in a sense, is right. Islam, in a sense, is right. Judaism in a sense is right. Buddhism in a sense is right. So I subscribe to high morality. And when whatever high morality you can take from those religions, that is what I subscribe to.
I like that answer. It's an interesting answer. I got a question for you. How long did it take you to get to that answer? Bouncing back and forth
around the age of 23.
House of Christianity, 23. Now, was that your introduction into astrology?
No, I was interested in astrology since a kid because I've always been interested in mythology. When you ask,
what was your start in
comic
astrology?
Books.
What was your first?
I read comic books when I was little, so 7 years old, and I read Conan the Barbarian. In Conan the Barbarian, Age of Conan comic book, they talked about astrology, and then I went and got real astrology books. It was called Walden bookstores back then. I went to the Walden bookstore would read real astrology books and mythology books. I am a comic book writer as well. So those things interest me: mythology, the gods, the stories, the parables, and the holy books and things of that sort, the prophets and their stories and the heroes that was in those stories. I was very much interested in, whether it be Samson, Hercules, or whomever. So I read a lot. I read about witchcraft. I read about anything that had to do with the supernatural or the occult. But I didn't get into it, meaning start to practice in these things. So I was after the age of 23.
Can I ask you a question? Growing up in one of those systems, I know we taught to fear.
Yes.
So how did you get into the occult stuff, being into, coming out of that?
It was comic books. And then my grandma would be like, oh, I don't like that one. That looks like the devil. And, throw my comic book away and I would get it out the trash. And so it was that, like being a rebellious kid, you told me I can't do it, I'm going to do it even more. And my dad's side was like, oh, that's not proper. That's not what Muslims do. Oh, yeah. As soon as he turned his back, I was doing it. So it was the rebelliousness within me that kept me driven towards those things.
Aquarian energy?
Now,
say again?
Aquarian energy?
I have Uranus or Uranus. I do have it in Libra, in a stellium with a whole bunch of other planets, the Sun, Mercury, and Pluto.
Very nice. Very interesting.
It does oppose my moon in Aries. So, when it came to my parental guidance, I did outright rebel against it.
Yeah.
Was that pointing to your moon?
Yeah.
You mentioned, what was your first branch of astrology that you jumped into?
Around the age of 23, I got this book called The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need.
Yeah, I got it too.
All right, and that's what I really got serious with. And I started, okay, this is a rising sign, this is a moon sign. Things I didn't know. I just knew about my sun sign, which is Libra. I didn't know about a rising sign and a moon sign. I, didn't know about your time of birth. And back then, they didn't have software programs, so I had to use an ephemeris to try to find my time of my rising sign, which, based on my birth certificate, Cancer would have been the ascendant. And I kept reading it, and I had my girlfriend, I was trying to read her, and my friends. And, at the time, I was heavily into starting to create my own comic books and writing, and astrology started to influence that. I started to put some of that stuff into my writing.
Are you an artist?
I'm not a visual artist. I wish. I am a literary artist. I can write anything, but I prefer to write science fiction, fantasy, and action.
Oh, well, when you said comic book, I thought you might have been
I pay artists to draw my comics, but I have a comic book right now called Starfall.
So you write the story.
Say again?
You write the story.
I create the ideas, the characters, and I write the story.
Interesting. Interesting. I have someone that's listening. that probably really interested her as
Well,
well.
yeah, it was funny because I kind of went away from it, but later when I became an astrologer, I went back to writing comics because now I actually use astrology to write the comics. I literally think of an idea and pull the birth time of the chart and write the story according to that chart.
Nice.
Well, in all actuality, isn't that where all the stories come from anyway?
Yes.
So you started off with that book, and then you went to what?
Like I said, I dabbled and I kind of leaned towards numerology, and I started studying numerology and practicing it. Then I met what is his name? Ooh, good friend of mine. He's a numerologist, and his name is slipping my tongue right now. But he's a black numerologist. Came with a book called Numerology Now. This black numerologist came there, and he blew me away. And I started to practice it more and more. Then around the same time, maybe a year later, I met a young lady on what we call it, MySpace back then.
Yeah.
MySpace, yeah.
Right, MySpace.
Now you're dating yourself, brother.
And and the young lady, was an artist, and I was trying to get an artist for this comic book idea I had. And she says, "Well, I'm not really that type of artist, but I know somebody you're looking for. This guy's really great, and he's into metaphysics like you are, so I think you'll get along." And she introduced me to Ra Akul, and I talked to him on the phone, and I came to pick him up one day from College Park subway in my truck. And he got in, and I had a numerology. Remember that book, Numerology for Dummies?
Yes.
Okay, so he had that book, Numerology for Dummies. And he looked at it and said to me, he said, so you can read? You're reading? And I was like, yeah, I can read, wow. He said, well, read me. And I'm like, oh, what's your name? How you spelling? What day you was born? And blah, blah, blah. I began to read him, right? Mm-hmm. So he said, wow, you're pretty good. You're good with numbers, huh? I was reading him with numerology, and he said, you're pretty good with numbers. Let me read you. I was like, oh, you're a reader too? He said, yeah. He just started reading me. And it blew my mind because I'm like, well, I didn't give you my name. I didn't give you my birthday. No, he just started reading me. And I said, so he started saying some things about me, and he said some very personal things that I know about 3 people in the world would know, literally. And I said, hold on a second, bro. Oh, do you know me from somewhere? And, because of my background, how I grew up in Baltimore, I was very skeptical of him, and I started to have fear of who he was. I thought my past was catching up to me. And he looked at my blood compartment. He says, you have a gun in that glove compartment, don't you? He said, but don't grab it. I don't know you like that. I'm just reading you. You're a Virgo rising. And I said, when he said that, I said, I'm not a Virgo rising. I'm a Cancer rising. He said, no, you're a Virgo. I can tell by your face. And he started describing the scar on my face and and all this kind of stuff. And he kept reading me. So that night we went to the young lady's place. He read my script for my comic book. He says, okay, I'll draw your comic book for you, but you have to become my student in astrology. And I said, nah, I'm cool. I got my numerology thing going on. He said, okay, well, you play chess, right? I said, yeah. He said, okay. And I had beat him one time in chess. He said, if I can beat you 10 times in a row, you can be my student. And I said, oh, fuck yeah. You ain't gonna beat me, bro. I'm a chess champion. Yeah. And he beat me 10 times in a row. And I became his student.
So, and that was your introduction into cosmophysics?
Absolutely. And he began to teach
your mentor's name is?
Ra Akul.
All right.
And he began to teach me the basics. The first thing he taught me was called the annum, and then the diurnal, and then the motions of the earth, the mathematics. And then he would take me out on the subway in DC on the bus, and he would just randomly come up to people and start reading them. And everything they were saying to him was yes, 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 yes. And he was just doing it. Just rocking up to anybody. You. This is nothing. This is your problem. You have this. You just did this. Blah, blah, blah. People are like, who are you? You psychic? He's like, nah, I'm not psychic. And he was just doing it in front of me. He was showing me his skill. So once I was convinced, he started to teach me. And then he gave me another reading about a tragedy about to happen in my life. It came to pass exactly on the day and the time he said it would. I remember I cried, and then I threw my Bible away.
Hmm.
I threw my Quran away. I threw the Torah away.
Wait. Why did you do that?
Because none of that made any sense anymore. I had been looking for that all my life. You know, I just been looking for that all my life. And the fact that I could do it myself blew my mind. That someone could teach me that blew my mind. I didn't have to be in anyone's church or masjid. You know, I didn't have to bow down and sacrifice my pride, my moral structure and values. And I had the power at that moment to make my own spiritual rules. So I did. I seized the opportunity. Carpe diem. I seized the day.
All right. I was gonna save this for my last question of the night for you, but it seems like it's a perfect time to answer it. I ask you this now. What has astrology done for you?
It has made me a better human being, first and foremost. It has made me a great father, a phenomenal science fiction comic book writer, a teacher, and it has allowed me to do something that I thought I would have to join, like the civil rights movement or some type of movement to do, or some type of church or religious organization to help change people's lives, help me change lives.
Huh. I'm glad you used that word, join, which leads me to why I reached out to you, because I read a paper that you wrote 11 years ago. It was called Racism Unmasked, or Racism in Astrology of Racism.
It was two of them. It was part one and part two. Part one is Cosmophysics, Racism Unmasked, and the part two is called Race and Astrology.
All right. Now, in part one, what led up to part one?
Racism in astrology. I was so enthusiastic about cosmophysics and how I was being taught and the accuracy of it. I wanted everybody to know about it. Funny thing, my mentor said the reason he taught me is because everyone thought he was crazy and he wanted other people to go crazy with him. I began to adapt that mentality, because the better I got at astrology, the more isolated I became from my family, from my friends. No one knew what I was talking about. I saw astrology and everything. I just pop out and say, oh, hell, Mars is rising now. Look at all the fire trucks around. Look at the police. Look at the action going on. You know, and people looking at me like, he gone crazy. But I am just observing the heavens in motion, you know, live astrology. They didn't understand that. So I became isolated. And for a person like me, a Libra, I need people around.
How did your family accept your diving into astrology? Probably like mine.
They think I'm crazy.
Mm.
Yeah. My grandma thinks it's the devil.
Claudia, how'd your family think about you diving into astrology?
Yeah, the same. I mean, that's kind of, we're basically plagued by that, aren't we? Like, when those of us that practice astrology, like, we basically become the black sheep of any sort of community we're in, because it's so out there. Literally.
And that was hurtful to me, because I was a Libra and I was very popular. I had lots of friends, lots of groups of friends. And so what I began to do is go online, seek that companionship online. Outside of my mentor, he was the only person that I could talk to. And when he wasn't available, no one to talk to. My girlfriends were like, So, you know, so it became almost like when I was dealing with a woman, if we weren't having sex or being romantic, then they had no use for me, because all I want to do was talk about astrology all day. I want to read them, read their family, everything. So I began to go online to the online groups. And at this time, Facebook was just starting to really pick up.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to myjournal.com. Everybody heard of that? I used to go on there and they had these groups, these astrology groups. And I was like, oh man, astrologers. And I got up in the groups and everyone's talking. And then I started talking cosmophysics. Now you have to understand something. I am not a traditionally trained astrologer. So I didn't know the nomenclature for traditional astrology. Cosmophysics is a little different because we emphasize a certain different things. Like we emphasize field study. You know how I was saying we would go on the bus and we were just straight reading people, right or wrong, just doing it at practice? That is a sharpen and short technique. We were taking the Black conscious idea of show and prove and putting that in astrology. If we couldn't prove it, we didn't talk about it. If it was provable, we kept it. And so we gained an eclectic system of astrology, which we call it cosmophysics, and start branding it the Jeet Kune Do of astrology, because we weren't use techniques that you can't use. We could start to calculate in our mind the sun degree, the planet's degree, the motions, and without the software. So a cosmophysician is a walking, living, breathing software and ephemeris. And I demonstrated that last night with my students with you. That's why I said I wanted you to see that they don't need software to calculate your sun degree, where it's at, where the sun is now, where it'll be at 30 days, so it'll be sextile in your sun, and all these other things. So I wanted to spread that. And when I got into these groups, the first thing I met was a lot of elitists. Before I met the racists, I met the elitists. Oh, you know, the way you're doing it, that's wrong. We learned this way. You have to join the UAC. You have to spend $2,500, $3,000, $4,000 for these programs, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I met some nice people too. One day, a nice astrologer said to me, I went to Silver Spring, Maryland, to an astrology conference where there were only 3 Black people there. And 2 of those Black people were in their 80s. I was the only Black person, young person there. And I went there and started face reading people. You're this, your son is that, and blowing their mind. I said, pull me aside. He said, where did you learn that? I said, oh, my mentor is gonna be here in an hour and he'll tell you cosmophysics. And I was telling her how I was really looking for a sponsor to get into the UAC or one of these official astrology clubs to learn their techniques. And she said, don't you do it. She says, everything you just did, everything that they're gonna teach you, you already know. You'll be spending thousands of dollars for nothing. You just did something that 80% of the people here cannot do, and they've been studying astrology for over 20 years. She said, don't you do it. And she encouraged me not to go into those traditional societies. And she's pretty big time in her own, you know, in those, you know, groups herself. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I just went online and started posting my stuff and what I was learning, and I started attracting more people, but I started attracting a lot of haters who come and say, hey, you know what you're talking about, and we've never heard of that. And who is a Ra Akul? You know, he's not an Alan Leo, he's not a Louetta George, he's not a Madame Blavatsky, you know, and you know, all these different people were downing us. And so I started to feel it's not because I'm bringing something new, it's kind of because I'm a Black guy and I'm bringing something new. And I got into some confrontations with some white astrologers who proved that, you know, like, you know, you think you're coming here, you know, and you're Blackanizing astrology, you can't do that, you know, or you're talking about astrology and racism, you can't do that. Astrology is a higher science, so, you know, you can't equate to racism. But it baffled me because they were using astrology for sex. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, that's true. And I was like, you can't do that. So I kind of backed off. And I got deeper into my astrology with Ra Akul. And I started using cosmophysics for sex. I'm like, oh, I'm going to see if I can have sex with this woman. Get her chart, find where her Mars, her Pluto, her Venus is, triangulate that. Mm-hmm. Mars is going to get her horny. Pluto is going to finish her off and have her orgasm. And I was, so my, as they say, my hit rate went from whatever percent I was at to 110.
Shit.
Straight up. And then I started, well, I'm gonna start getting women out of my league, 110. So then Ra pulled me aside and said, hey, I like what you're doing because you're testing it, but you're using it for sex, and I'm not gonna teach you any further until you stop, because I can't have that because it's karmatic, and you're my student, and I am gaining karma for you doing that.
I was about to say, wouldn't that astrology can be dangerous in the wrong hands?
Yo, it's dangerous.
It is though.
It's dangerous. So I stopped that.
You gotta really realize what you messing with because
Yeah. So I stopped it, but before I stopped it, I was able to at least chronologize a lot of what I did, and I turned it into a blog called Sexual Astrology, which is still online. You can read it. So all that stuff is true. I literally tested out every rising, every sun sign, every moon sign. I was going in with
blog call again.
Sexual Astrology, the Dirty Part 1.
All right.
The dirty. I like that.
The Dirty Part 1. I did 4 of them, but I only published 1. The Dirty Part 1. I did Astro Poly Life, Poly Astrology. I did.
Wait, is that about the polyamorous lifestyle?
Yeah, I did that. Open relationships and polyamorous lifestyle. I did astrology. I did the astrology of LGBTQ. I called it queer astrology back then. Cosmophysics and queer astrology. I did that because I started to read so many people for free, by the way. I read people from 2010 to 2015 for free online.
I did the same thing as I was driving around doing Lyft.
So, and I was doing that too. I was reading people in my Uber.
Yeah.
I have a video called the Uber Astrology where I do it live. Like, oh, watch this. Boom, put it on. I'm reading the guy. I think he's a Leo rising behind me while I was driving Cancer Sun, and I'm reading him, live. And so I started doing all that stuff. Rob wanted me to get off the sexual astrology thing because he wanted to build a brand at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was his main recruiter. I will go out and find young up-and-coming astrologers who were sharp in mind and pull them into cosmophysics, teach them for free the basics, and put them on our blog talk radio show called the Cosmophysics Show, which was a 3-hour show, which I had a format. I give you an hour of astrology and news and an astrology lesson. Then I bring my guests on, astrologer or metaphysician. Then after that, I give you an hour of people calling in and I read you. And me and my guests or me and my cosmophysics students or my mentor would read you, or my cosmophysics contemporary, because now all of them were my students, they were raw students. We would read people for 3 minutes apiece. We only had 3 minutes apiece to read everybody. Boom, boom, boom. We just get mad calls and we shut the whole thing down.
What year was this? Around what year?
Oh, the Cosmophysics Show? I think that was around 2013, 14, and 15. It lasted for like 3 years. We were on different networks. We were on the Abundance Child Network, the Ringtone Network, a bunch of, you have to look that up. Just type in Cosmophysics Blog Talk. It should come up. But it's plenty of shows. Me, Christian Littles, Maku Amun, Ra Akul, his students, and that's what we did. And I designed the show to follow the sun. So, like if I was doing the show now, it would be about Cancer all month. It was every other Sunday. So you get 2 shows on Cancer. I probably do one about, the feminine energy, and the other one I do about parenting or, commodities, whatever, whatever Cancer-oriented energy. And it was fun, but we got to learn a lot because of those live readings at the end of the hour.
Yeah.
That was the best part.
So this show was after this paper, and you was coming up
around 2013, I believe. Yeah, my son was born around 2012, summer 2012, up until 2013. I split from Cosmophysics. I had, as you grow, you bump heads. I bump heads with my mentor, and a lot
after
of my
that, went into Pisces.
My other contemporaries felt I was too forceful and too demanding in the things I wanted, especially in the show. And so I felt they were all turning against me, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I split from them. That year of my own, I grew phenomenally. I developed my own technique or my own tradition of astrology I call conceptual astrology during that time. It was a time where I felt lost about cosmophysics. So I said, well, what can I do? Because I can't give astrology up, but I'm lost. So I went back to something I love, writing, comic books, fantasy. I started role playing D&D and Vampire the Masquerade again. And I think 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons was out. I started role playing again, and I went back to writing comic books. And I was really heavily into Carl Jung and the hero's journey. And then when I found out Carl Jung was an astrologer, and he wrote some astrology books, I started reading it, and I started getting into esoteric astrology and Vedic astrology, and expanding my different astrological preview outside of cosmophysics. And I started meeting mentors and people in those genres who were exchanging information and teaching me things, and I was teaching them things from a cosmophysics perspective, and I grew.
So wait, this is when you develop conceptual astrology?
Yes.
Now, are you still a conceptual astrologer?
Absolutely.
Inside of cosmophysics?
Yes, I'm a cosmo-conceptualist.
And a wordsmith.
It's all those Libra planets, though.
I like that word. I see the word play. So I heard you mention conceptual astrology. That's why I want to make sure.
So I began to develop that, and I developed a technique within conceptual astrology called opening the lotus. The zodiac is a 12-petal lotus. Each sign is connecting to the other sign. So whatever subject matter, theme, or a concept or idea you're thinking of, the zodiacal energy that's most prominent with it, you put to the ascendant. That becomes the subject matter. And you open the lotus, and petal by petal, house by house, sign by sign, you read the generalities and the connections of that idea. So for instance, I'll give an example, just a really brief example. Leo is equated to the sign children. Children is equated to the zodiac Leo. If we study the anatomy of the sign Leo by opening the lotus, Leo is at the ascendant. It means children subject matter. Leo is the sign of unconditional love, playfulness, childishness, the divine child and such and such. That's Leo in the first, because children project without unconsciously their divine self, always, right? And so then after Leo is the sign Virgo, and Virgo is in the second place. The second house normally represents what we eat, what we chew, our values, and some things are morals. Well, a child, you can't eat, you can't just feed a child anything. So you have to be very specific of what you feed a child. And that's Virgo in the second. Virgo is the sign of Pacifics, okay? All right, and the third place we find Libra, and children communicate how they are related to. So how you relate to a child is how they can communicate back to you. You know what I'm saying? And so Scorpio in the 4th place, if you do your research, a lot of children, the number 1 card for children is in the home. That's the 4th place, okay? And it is their upbringing and their parent which transforms them and evolves, their parenting evolves them, okay? And then the 5th place of children, Sagittarius, and we know children love 5th place to jump up and down, to run, and they play too damn much, okay? With Sag up in the 5th, and we can spin that wheel. And that's why I say I'm a driver in astrology, not a passenger, because I take control of the wheel and I spin it. You spin that wheel around, all the way around. You can go all around. You can put Pisces in the 8th place. Children die from crib death, correct? That's what they die from mostly when they're infants, crib death. And we can go all around that entire wheel to describe the generalities that connect with children. And so what I have done is I have opened the lotus of Leo on the concept of children, to explain why Leo is the prominent sign of children. So I did that for everything, all kinds of, you can do it for, I did it for mythologies. In esoteric astrology, what's the name? Alice Bailey book, right? She always explained, wherever you have Jupiter at, or wherever the house, the cuff Sagittarius on, is where you act the most like Zeus. And you had Jupiterian or, Jupiter qualities. You're like the god, that's where you're like the god, the king of the gods, and you're very exuberant and blah, 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 right? But what none of these astrologers ever told you, why? And they'll say, oh, well, Jupiter is the king of the gods like Zeus because it's the biggest planet, but never really why. But if you put Sag to the first and you open up that 12-petal lotus, Sagittarius in the first house represents the body and physique. And Sag in the first equals a giant, and Zeus is a giant, correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn, the second house, represents Zeus's father, Kronos, tried to eat him, correct?
Nice, yeah.
Zeus throws the what? The lightning bolt. And the third place is the place of the hand, and he holds the lightning bolt, Aquarius, correct? Zeus was raised on an island by nymphs. That's Pisces in the fourth, correct? He was hidden in the cave on the island, right? Hidden during while he was reared, correct? That's Pisces in the fourth. Okay, Zeus's firstborn child, okay, is Mars or Ares, the war god. All right, and his firstborn daughter was born from his head, Athena, Ares. Okay, so we can spin that chart around. Zeus married his cousins, his sisters, his aunties, Gemini and the seventh, and we can spin that wheel all around. And Scorpio on the 12th, what was his undoing? His sexuality. He always was either raping or sleeping with somebody's wife or raping someone. He had Scorpio in the 12th. So we can spin that his entire catalog of myths fits in Sagittarius. If you open up the lotus sign by sign, house by house, petal by petal. So I could explain to you why Zeus or Jupiter is Sagittarius. They couldn't. And they were the professional astrologers, the celebrities of astrology.
So I have a question. When you trying to figure out your planet significations or your sign significations of, do you place that planet in the first house and then go all the way around, and that's how you get is that the concept? Because you just talked about kids and you put Leo in the first house, and then you just went all the way around the wheel describing kids. So let's just say Venus. Is that how you explain Venus? You would put Venus in the first house and then go around the wheel?
No, sir. I look at the definition of the word, or I look at the powerful traits or the most known traits and characteristics of the idea. And I look at the signs that are most prominent connected to that, okay? And then I spin the wheel on all of those things and see what encompasses all of the theme, what encompasses all the motif, what encompasses all of the myth, all the characteristics, the best.
Does conceptual astrology use the traditional planets, or do you use?
I use them all. I'm not going to limit myself to traditional planets. So I'll give you an example.
So Aquarius is Uranus for you?
It's Uranus ruled, but it's also co-ruled by Saturn.
All right. I was just asking.
Yeah. I started to use it on linguistics as well. So, for instance, you know how you have, I started using it on linguistics and concepts. You know how you get high and you get the munchies?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, Neptune is exalted in Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. And Venus is rules towards what you eat. You get when you eat, right? And Pisces when you get high. And so therefore you get the munchies when you get high. So I started looking at the exaltations and showing how, you know, the bone marrow in your body is produced by the red blood cells, right?
Mm-hmm.
The calcium, right? And we see how Mars is exalted in Capricorn. You see?
Capricorn.
So I started looking at things like that, even in medical astrology, like, and I started seeing how at first I was just conceptualizing with story and myth, but then I started using it on real life themes and conceptions in astrology, even in the linguistical value. You know, I started seeing people in their charts, like, you know, Martin Luther King may say, I have a dream. And then I would look in his chart and see where that configuration conceptually was. I'm like, and that would help me actually better delineate his chart. So I started using it for other things. And then a practical use for it was when I create stories. The story has a birth time. And even though I write the story by the conceptual chart, that chart actually has a second house, how that story can make money. A ninth house, how you promote that story. A seventh house, the people you partner with to make that story come to fruition. So I started having a practical application for it. So then I taught a student who was a musician, a rapper, a conscious rapper by the name of Khalid Scientific. I said, I want you to rap your chart. that song I sent you.
Yeah.
Like the first thing he says, Sun is in Taurus, Scorpio at the rising, and he goes around his whole chart. He raps it, right?
Yeah.
And he started putting it in his music, and I started asking him, do an album. What date was the album thought of? We put up the chart of that date. And then I was like, what's the second house of that? What's the second house ruler? What's the ninth house ruler? And we built a financial and marketing program for that album, and he would be successful with it based on the conception of the album. So when conception astrology was more conceptual, I also developed a mechanical use for it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Being a writer, you have access to fantasy and stories and storylines, right? How much would you say an astrologer needs that to actually give a good delineation?
Anyone who has a great imagination, a good grasp for words, and a good with oratory style can be a delineator. But an astrologer needs a balance of the mathematics to go with it, because you what means nothing if I can't tell you when. When prediction is the creme de la creme of astrology. Even in history, the kings called the astrologer to divine things, to have forethought, to help them predict. If you can't make predictions, don't call yourself an astrologer. That's just my personal thing.
Don't they have the chart for the building of Babylon?
You got 2 or 3 of them, depending on which one you're going.
I think I heard it's the electional chart for the building of Babylon.
Depending on which one you're going to use. Like they had different charts for Jesus Christ, or Muhammad, Buddha. Depends on what you use, you know. United States has a couple of charts. United States has a Gemini. I use the Gemini rising chart. I think it's 6 degree or 9 degree, 8 degree Gemini rising chart for the United States, but they has the Sibley chart is Aquarius rising chart. For the United States, they have the Scorpio rising chart because they had the picture of the artwork of the clock at the time. They have the Sagittarius rising chart, and then you have the solar chart, which is a Cancer chart of the United States. So depending on what you and then there's a wartime chart. There's a financial fiscal chart that's used for Wall Street. So you have different charts when it comes to electional and using nations and things of that sort. I use a Gemini rising chart because I actually made 3 accurate predictions with it. I predicted the death of Osama bin Laden with it.
I got a question for you then. Using the Gemini rising chart, how do you explain this time right now with the whole Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunction?
Well, if we look at Gemini,
using conceptual astrology, that's why.
Right. If you're looking at Gemini at the ascendant, you put and you're putting Capricorn on the 8th house cups, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what you're gonna kind of see, you're kind of gonna see what's going on for America right now, okay? Because the 8th house cup normally deals with like national debt, morality rates, insurance, and Social Security, but it also talks about the evolution, the transformation of that national society. Okay, so when you're throwing Pluto, and especially who's been there for the last couple of years, you're throwing Pluto in there, you're looking at upheavals in the government, terrorist attacks. You're looking at a transformation in the way debt is handled. Okay, you're looking at the death, the morality rates coming up. Going up, and then Saturn is in there, and so some people equate that to murder, Pluto Saturn or Pluto and Capricorn murder of black people, okay, or the plutocracy and the technocracy becoming supreme and dominant during that time, and or others like to see an upheaval and a destruction of the system, a breakdown in the system, which we've seen some breakdown in the system. But remember, Pluto and Capricorn is a transformation of the system. And so the status quo hasn't died. They have just adapted and transformed.
We didn't get in the article, but you talked about Jupiter, and Claudia had a Jupiter question for you, and maybe that is a good time to bring it up since we,
I do. I have the Jupiter question, but before I do the Jupiter, I wanted to know what your opinion on I think it's called the Thema Mundi. It's like it's basically like the astrological chart of the entire world. You mentioned, the United States, and that one came to mind right away. So I guess I want to pick your brain. Like, how would you place it? Would you place it exactly how they do it? With like, I think like Sun in the 5th house, or like I think Cancer's like, I don't know if it's Cancer rising or something, but
rising.
Yeah, Cancer rising.
I used to think the Earth was a Cancer rising, but I don't know now, because the formation of the Earth was first an aquatic thing, right? And Pisces is the sea, right? And Pisces places Cancer in the 5th place, and that I am on the verge of trying to see if Pisces fits it more. So I can't really, I don't see nothing wrong with the way they have it done now. But now that I thought about that, because I was talking to someone, and we were talking about the ages, like, how they had the dinosaur age and the different ice ages and blah blah blah, and we were watching this evolutionary Earth just on Discovery Channel, like the Earth when it first formed, what were the first continents formed, and things of that sort, and blah blah blah, and what was here, fresh water or salt water, and blah blah blah. And the consensus in science is that it was more salt water than fresh water at first, and fresh water is Cancer and salt water is Pisces. See? So I started saying, so let me see. But it's the mixture of those waters, when fresh water developed with the salt water, that kind of brought about a lot of life. And Cancer in the 5th, in the place of life, you know what I'm saying? Kind of fits that Pisces rising Monday instead. But I haven't done any more research on it. It was just a thought.
Interesting. I like that you put Pisces rising there. I'm gonna actually do my own research behind it.
What would you describe the type of water Scorpio is?
Boiling.
What do you say?
Boiling. Scorching water.
Yeah. Well, you
muddy.
You said
muddy,
Cancer,
swampy.
You said Cancer is fresh water, Pisces is salt water. That's why I was wondering, for the people who might have been wondering, what's the other water sign then? Scorpio.
Scorpio is extreme temperatures. That's why I say boiling.
Interesting. I would put it under swampy water.
That's extreme.
Yeah, it is extreme.
But yeah, Scorpio represents more the biological life process. So that's why it's equate to the sexual organs with semen and those type of liquids in the body, or those type of fluids in the body. So I would look at Scorpio as more biological internal waters, or biological waters. And Pluto also represents, in our school of thought, DNA.
Interesting. I like that. I'm gonna go to my question now. I read I read the article on it wasn't the astrology of racism, it was the other one. I think it was race, cosmology race.
It's Cosmophysics, Racism Exposed.
Yeah, Racism Exposed, I believe. My question was just, why Jupiter? Like, why put, from my understanding, from my perspective,
he's an Aries rising, by the way.
Yeah, I'm Aries rising, and I am actually Cuban, by the way, born and raised. I actually am I'm an immigrant in this country. But I think it's very interesting the fact I definitely have a moon in Sag, so I'm very like connected to the foreign. So I like how you used like Sagittarius energy to connect with, you know, foreign races and whatnot. But Jupiter, to me, I would have, I mean, why not Saturn? Like Saturn is more systems and structures, and race to a certain extent is systemic in a way, right? Like we've created that structure of race as a human.
Okay. So the idea of race itself, to me, is an Aries motif. Race is because Aries is about identity. Aries is about being first. It's about me.
Yes.
About being physical. So the idea of race itself, to me, is a concept that finds its home with Aries. But racism is a philosophy of race. And Sag being the sign of philosophy, if we looked at, I have a blog too called Open the Lows on the Racist. And taking that as example, the racist philosophy, the ninth house is Sagittarius, which they try to spread and force on other, and the conquering mentality, and, you know, they're better than everybody else, and so forth. So the idea of how you connect with other people who are foreign, and I gotta explain what foreign is in astrology to me. It's not just people of other races and ethnicities, it's people of religion, upbringing. So I was born in South Baltimore. Someone born in East Baltimore is foreign to me. They were born in a different community. They were raised in a different community. And if you lived in South Baltimore and moved to East Baltimore, it was a whole different world. Okay. If you lived in South Baltimore and you moved to Little Italy, it's a total different world. You moved to Chinatown, it's a total different world. They're foreigners. Okay. So or a young lady I dated, because I grew up, she was a Jehovah's Witness. She's foreign because she didn't grow up with the same values, the same background, that same ethics as I did. So that's I want to first explain that. It's not just a race thing. You know, it's people who are brought up in a different background than you all can be foreign as well. Okay. Yeah. So my mentor like to say anybody born more than 2 miles away from you is foreign. Okay. So now Sagittarius generally, you know, the ninth, generally is the sign of foreigners and foreign places and foreign religion and philosophy and religion, right? The ninth place normally represents your ethics, your personal philosophy, adult philosophy, not how you grew up, but the philosophy you come to terms with as an adult because you've had experience in the world. You've gone out in the world, you've come to these conclusions, and this is now your ethics. Where the second house to me is your morals that you are taught, not necessarily the ones you follow. Okay? All right. So I was taught the 10 Commandments. I don't follow them. Okay. So that the ninth house is pretty much, you know, what conclusions you've come to. Like when he asked me, what religion are you? And I said, this is the conclusion. Okay, this is how it represents my spirituality, my religious thought process, and my philosophy. So that's your ninth house, right? So the ruler of the natural ninth place in Sagittarius is Jupiter. Wherever Jupiter is going to be in your chart, it's going to show how those experiences, how the energy of the ninth house in the ninth sign, wherever it is in your chart, expresses itself in your immediate environment around you. Okay, so Jupiter plus, do not forget this, the ninth house ruler, which is equal to Jupiter because Jupiter is a generalization for us to know astrology, but it's particularly the ninth house ruler in your chart. It determines your race relationships, your relationship with other people who are born in a foreign land, other people who are of different religion, other people who are different philosophy, other people who were born in a different upbringing than you. Your ninth place ruler is what it really is. And so if you read that, I talk about Jupiter just to set the tone. But then I get into your ninth house ruler, and I use the chart of the Ku Klux Klan to hone in my point in that particular blog. And I also use my own chart because my ninth house My ninth house ruler is Venus, and it's found in the 12th place in Leo, and it triangles Jupiter and Neptune in Sagittarius. And so I'm very open-minded to other people of foreign races, foreign cultures, or that. But I also because that configuration, Jupiter, when you know it's a triangle Jupiter, but Jupiter's caught in that mutable T-square with Saturn and Mars. And so I hate racism. I hate racist. I don't like when people put each other above each other and things of that sort. So it kind of explains my way I deal with it. So I use that as an example. And then I started reading people who were actually professed racists. People come, I said, "You're a racist. Can I read your chart? Can I read your chart? Do you mind?"
Field study.
Yeah. And I started looking at their ninth house ruler. And I came to a pattern I started seeing. I started seeing the ninth house ruler plus
Reese,
yes.
can you explain? I was trying to explain it to her. Can you explain the 12-6-9 thing?
Okay. All right. Hold on 1 second. So I started seeing the pattern of ninth house ruler, the sun, Mars, and Jupiter in the chart, and dealing with their race relations and how they view other people of different races.
Okay.
And so I started to watch that pattern. And other astrologers were like, "You can't tell somebody's a racist." And I began to dispute them. I said, "No, you can't just look at a chart and say, oh, that person's racist. But I can study a chart, and then I can conduct an astrological interview. I can conduct an astrological reading, and from that, deduce if they're a racist or a bigot." And I was doing it absolutely every single time. And so I became adamant that this was a technique that you can do. And so, the ninth house naturally squares the 12th house.
I know that because I have a sun moon square.
So race relations naturally squares the subconscious and shame and sorrow and tragedy.
Nice.
Wait.
I like that.
Okay.
Subconscious and shame. What are you putting that with?
That's 12th place, my friend.
Well, not everybody that's listening to this is on our level, brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marcus,
some of
about that.
Some of the negative connotations, and Marcus, there are positive connotations to the 12th house. The 12th house is a place of prayer, meditation. It's a place of compassion, forgiveness. It represents messiahs, saviors, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so that's just it's saving grace, by the way. So it represents the church. All right, the body. The body of the church, those who what do you call them? The lay people who support the church, the body, the congregation. That's what the 12th place represents.
Ushers. Ushers.
Yeah. So that's what that. But on a negative level, it's your self undoing, your secret enemies, your silent self, what you're ashamed of, what your delusions, and things that bring sorrow. Okay. And so since racism, which is a negative connotation, a negative philosophy of the ninth place, squares the 12th place of sorrow and tragedy, what comes about when people enforce racism, sorrow, shame, and tragedy?
True.
12th place then squares the 3rd place, the subconscious mind, which in your mind squares the conscious mind. Okay? And so if the subconscious mind is compassion, and the conscious mind, 3rd place, is your conscious mindset, and there's a square, then there's an inability for you to show compassion consciously if you promote the racism, going back to the 9th house. Okay? Now that 3rd place now squares that 6th place of your everyday, day-to-day activities and habits. Okay? And the health and hygiene of the self, your health, okay, and how you take care of yourself. And so, and this is why on the conscious thoughts, when it comes to foreigners, 9th place, we often think they stink, they're dirty, oh, we don't want to be around them, because their day-to-day lifestyle isn't like ours, consciously, from the conscious thought. And then the 6th place will then square the 9th place. You know what I'm saying? This is why we often want foreigners to serve us and put them in menial jobs. and so forth, so forth. So I explain that a lot more detail in that blog. But I'm just running through it really quick to give you an idea.
This is some of the questions I wanted to touch on real quick. Because
that follows the grand mutable cross there.
Mm-hmm.
So what that's saying is the grand mutable cross has a lot to do with racism as well. See, if you look at that cross and you look at the signs that are involved in that mutable, in that grand mutable cross, you'll start to see, these are all the characteristics and all the things that befall us when the world is in race, when they're projecting racism, when they're manifesting racism, when you're dealing in racism. These are all the negative connotations. They come right out at you. You'll see it right then and there. Okay, like I just showed you that a little snippet of it, but I go deeper in that blog with it to actually show you, and you'll see it. You'll see it in our everyday general attitude towards anybody. Whether you're not racist or not. See, you don't have to be a racist to perpetuate racist ideas that are installed in you from your upbringing.
I have a question for you, Reese. The listeners out there are sitting up there saying, "Damn, he's doing that with a whole society of people, or whatever." Can you see that in someone's personal chart? Like, if I looked at my chart, what would that show me that, as far as what would that explain to me if I looked at my cut?
It doesn't show. Okay. Yes, it does. I can look. You, not just me. You can look at your own chart and follow that method that I am teaching, and I guarantee you, what it will do is explain the way you deal with people outside of your race, outside of your religion, outside of your philosophy, outside of your ethics. Okay, that's what it shows. And what
would you say for a Scorpio rising?
What would I say for them?
Using that method.
Using that method for a Scorpio at the ascendant, I would literally look at their moon because the moon rules that ninth place. And I would look at the relationships that the moon formed in that chart. So that means the squares, the oppositions, the quincunxes first, because those things right there.
So you're not just going by the cusp signs on the cusp.
Well, that gives you the general format.
All right.
Which that gives you the general format. But now we're talking about the individual.
Okay.
Can't do that. We got to go who's the ninth house ruler. Ninth house ruler in Scorpio is the moon.
All right.
And I don't care what degree of Scorpio rising you are. Scorpio on the ninth house cusp, a Scorpio on the cusp of your ascendant means that Cancer is on the ninth cusp. That means the moon rules that cusp. Okay, I don't care where the house starts.
All right.
The cusp takes precedence because the cusps and the angles are how you use to predict.
What house system does conceptual astrology use?
I follow cosmophysics, and in cosmophysics, with the G Kondo astrology, we have an eclectic system where we utilize a blend of the equal house, whole house system. It works most efficiently for us calculating planetary movements in our head.
Equal, nice.
Or how does the blend work?
Example, I'm a 28-degree Virgo at the ascendant. I have Venus at 16 degrees of Leo. Venus is in my 12th sign, 11th house. And so I would read Venus first in the 12th, as a 12th sign, in the 12th sign, and then give it the 11th house characteristics.
All right. You got any questions, Claudia?
Did you
understand? Did you
understand? I did. I think it's interesting. Number one, I think it's interesting that you use the equal house system. I recently just used it, and I realized that every single house starts at whatever your rising degree starts. I'm not very familiar with the equal, but I thought it was kind of interesting. It shifted everything for me a little bit.
And I use that because what runs people away from astrology, the mathematical portion, is the calculation. So you want to streamline it to make that as efficiently as possible. The blending of those two systems make it efficiently. If you looked up Placidus and tried to calculate in your head, you'll be all day.
What about whole sign? You don't think that one is easier?
Well, that's the blend. That's the blend.
I
Oh,
blended
that's the
with
blend.
whole sign. Yeah, I blended with whole sign, and I used both of them together. Blended.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about with the blend.
Mhm.
Oh, I understand.
But yeah, if you
You know
try
how
to
you-
use
you know how
some
you-
of the other systems and calculate in your head, now, mind you, I'm not saying the other systems don't work. I don't want people to take that away from this, because it's not the system, it's the astrologer in my thought process. Okay,
I agree. Yeah.
you're gonna do very well at what works for you. What I am saying is that if you're studying cosmophysics and you're doing the fast calculations that we're doing, and you're trying to be accurate, the best way to be fast and accurate and efficient is to blend these two systems. Because if you try to use those other systems, you're gonna need a calculus calculator, you're gonna need some pen and paper, and you're gonna need some graph paper and a compass and all this other kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
When you use this system, all you need is your mind.
Do you use, when doing the transits, do you use the equal? Like if I'm trying to time my transits.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
All right.
I'm gonna test that.
What-
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it next
Well,
time.
Most
Reese,
definitely.
tell. Wait. You heard what you just said? Tell her what you're supposed to do. Oh, I think Wait, did you hear
No, I
me?
heard you. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. What do you mean?
What did Raul say? You got to do what? Field test?
Oh, a field test.
Yeah. So you're not. That's what you're supposed to do, ain't right?
Right, because you have to understand today, a lot of people, especially a lot of people calling them astrologers, there are a lot of people on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They're making money, and they're
Yeah,
astrologers, but they're not astrologers. They're delineators. Okay, they're astrology aficionados. Okay, they are, they love astrology, but they're not astrologers. An astrologer predicts.
Yeah.
That's simple. Okay, the astrology equates to the sign Aquarius. Aquarius is the cosmos and the stars. All right, and Aquarius is forethought, intuition. I know a lot of people use intuition for Pisces.
Channel.
They look at it as a psychic thing, but intuition is nothing about intuition. Is psychic. Intuition is pure knowledge, knowing thyself.
I actually put intuition with Sag myself personally, with teach his own.
What intuition is, I'm going to explain something really different.
All right.
A psychic ability has with the instincts and feelings, because psychic is Pisces, and Pisces is a water sign. Okay.
All right.
Intuition doesn't have any feeling to it.
Mm-mm.
I know I don't have to have a feeling. I know that if I cut that stove, I'll burn the fuck out of my hand. That's knowledge. Okay. Aquarius is the sign of knowledge. Pisces is the sign of faith. Once you have knowledge, you don't need faith anymore.
I like
And
that.
what is the 12th house of Pisces? What undoes faith and belief? Knowledge. That's why knowledge reigns supreme over everything and everyone. KRS-One.
Which leads. Don't you say we are already in the age of Aquarius?
Yes, we've been in age of Aquarius for almost over 500 years.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. There's a lot. There's a lot of people that are saying that's not accurate. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not arguing you with it.
I got
just think
you.
It's interesting.
I'm gonna explain my view of it. I'm not gonna argue about it either. Okay. Listen. Around the time Leonardo da Vinci was born, and he's one of the avatars of this age. Okay. He's a
A
genius.
Pisces, I believe.
Yeah, and Aquarius is genius. Okay. Around the time, I think a year of his birth, was called the heliacal rising of Aquarius rose. Now, a lot of people in astrology don't believe in ages. And then those that do believe, they calculate upon the precession of the equinox. But you have to understand the calculation of the precession that they're using is Ptolemy's or westernized.
Mhm.
They're not using the Kemetic calculation of the heliacal risings. They don't use them at all. Okay. The Egyptians, the Kemetians, or the Kushites used the heliacal risings to determine the ages, not just the precession. So they only doing one part of it. It's another part. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
like I can delineate your sun sign. But if I don't know the degree of the sun, then I don't know the decan or the Dwada Shama either, and I can't go deeper into your stuff, because if I knew the degree, I automatically know the decan. If I know the decan, I know the Dwad. If I know the degree, decan, and Dwad, then I can give you more information about your personality than I would just knowing your sun sign. And this is why most people don't believe sun paper astrology is real, because they're not talking about decans and Dwads and degrees.
No.
Okay? So, so then when the scientists are trying to disprove astrology, they're not even doing real experiments.
Wait. Let me stop you. So are you saying sun sign astrology is real?
Solar astrology is real.
Is that,
So,
what's the difference?
example, what is your birthday, young lady?
February 25th, 92.
So you're February 25th, right?
Mhm.
So I know automatically that Valentine's Day every year, the sun's at like 25 degrees of Aquarius,
Mhm.
14th. Okay. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I lose count of that 12
It's
more
like 6 degrees of Pisces.
So plus 12, 25 degrees, 25 degree Aquarius plus 12. Okay, so we're looking at 6 degrees of Pisces approximately, right? 6 degrees of Pisces puts your sun in the Pisces decan, or the Neptune decan, or the Jupiter decan, however you want to put that, right? Decan, right? And let me see, the Dwar would be 2.5. So 0, 2.5 is Pisces, 2.5 to 5 is was next to the Pisces, Aquarius, Aries, and then 5 to 7, that's where you're at, is Taurus. So you're in the Taurus Dwar. Okay, so the sun is in Pisces. So I would think, hey, you're very interested or very motivated by visual art and poetic things, and meditation or music relaxes you. I would also say that aromatherapy is something that you're very interested in, and that even if you're into foods or not, then you're more into foods that melt in your mouth, or like cotton candy or watermelon, or you're into, how far am I correct so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep going.
Okay, so this is more information than saying, oh, you're Pisces, you're really psychic.
No, yeah, of course.
Hey,
But actually, he's using what that guy from Astrolata. Well, I don't know if you're using this, but I've heard of the degree theory. Is it the degree theory, Paul?
Yeah.
Nicola came up with that degree theory.
Yeah, but he's not. He's not using that one.
No, he's not using it, but it's very similar because based on that degree theory, that those delineations, or rather, like what you're saying, is basically like coming out.
It might be how he's doing it.
So, as an astrologer, if you were paying me by the hour.
Hold up. Let's do this one more time. Marcus, when your birthday?
Oh man, August 28th.
Virgo.
76.
So he was born on 8/28, correct?
Yeah.
The sun goes into Virgo on 8/22, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's
Well, I don't know his chart. I forgot it. So
I'm not gonna read his whole chart. I'm just gonna read his sign. We want to know. We want to see if sun sign astrology works. I'm sure.
yeah. That's why I wanted you to do.
So on 8/22, the sun is at 0 degrees. Okay, so 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. That's 6 degrees later. So that means he's approximately a 7 degrees Virgo sun. Okay, so being approximately 7 degrees Virgo sun puts him in the Virgo decan. Also puts him in
I got it.
Virgo, Libra, Scorpio Dwad. Okay, put him in the Scorpio Dwad. All right, and so Marcus is very interested in information information and learning information that helps him break other things down analytically. And he likes to take things apart and put them back together mentally. And he does it with such a precision, and he dives so deep into the psychology of it that it's almost obsessive. Is that correct, Marcus?
You calling me crazy? I think that other people call me that too.
Okay, so just based on the technique that I'm showing you, that shows you that real sun sign, or solar is what I call it, solar astrology works. I haven't talked about his moon or his ascendant. I haven't done any of those calculations, which I can do, but I'm just showing you the very basic of what so many astrologers these days are missing in their education.
All right. Oh, before this whole thing runs out, I want you to explain your rising sign theory, how you could tell someone's rising sign. If you could share that.
Cosmophysics, and if you want to do that, contact Raw Cool and he'll teach it to you.
Oh, all right.
Okay. That is an actual cosmophysics trade secret.
Oh, all right. Well, that's why I was asking. That's why I was asking.
We call it the 8th place method. I'll tell you what it's called,
Yeah.
but that's what we do. It's a trade secret because that actually puts us a little bit ahead of a lot of the best astrologers in the world right now. Because they can't figure out how we're sitting there talking to people and looking at them and figuring out, determining their ascendant and being right, accurate, or within the ballpark.
What's the name of the class?
You want to contact Raw Cool and learn the 8th place method.
All right.
But I will tell you this. Before we go, because I want to kind of touch on what Marcus was talking about with the Bible and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
When I became a cosmophysician, Marcus, I went back to the Bible because I told you I threw it away, right? I bought a new one, King James Version to be accurate, okay? And remember when John said, "In the beginning was God, and in the beginning was God, and the Word was God." Okay.
John 1.
Okay.
1 and 1.
So the sign Gemini is the sign of the word. It's the sign of communication. It's also the sign of the book, right? And Christians use the what? The good book, right? So the sun,
Word. Yeah.
the sun, God. The sun means God, life, God. In that sign Gemini, right, lets you know that the word is God, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, there was the word, and the word was God, right? Also, in the beginning, God created the heavens. When you look at the real translation, it says he created the heavens and the planets, okay? And the planets. He didn't create the planets for nothing, right? Throughout the Bible, you'll see them point to, as much as they tell you, oh, they talk about killing all the astrologers and the demon worshippers and stuff, but you'll see plenty of astrological.
All day long.
All day long.
In the Genesis, all the way through Revelation.
All the way through. My favorite thing, though,
it was a writing style.
My favorite thing in the Bible is very important because it gives you the mathematical formula for something called the solar progress. And that's how we predict as astrologers. Okay? One day of life of man.
Yeah.
That was God, right?
Yeah.
So guess what? One day equals 1 year of life. So if you progress the chart, just one day past your birthday, that's your second year of life. So if you're 40 years old, if you progress that chart 40 days after your birthday, that chart that you're looking at 40 days or 40 degrees, 1 degree equals 1 year too, okay? Mm-hmm. 40 degrees, 40 days after your birthday, it's going to show you your 40th year.
Secondary progressions.
That is a secondary progression. That is in your Bible. That's relevant right in the Bible. In that parable.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
One day equals 1 year of life.
I got a question for you. You said astrology is all in the Bible. What else can you point to astrologically that's in the Bible?
Oh man, the story of Job is the story of Virgo. Okay.
The story of what?
The story of Job is the story of Virgo. All right.
Job.
J-O-B.
J-O-B. Okay.
Yeah, that's the story of it. And there's no irony. J-O-B means a job, and Virgo is also the sign of the job of a worker. And Job was a hard worker too. So you got that.
Wait. Tie that together for Marcus, please.
Marcus, I have actually, while to do you more credit, I have a blog. You can read it, and you'll see it, because that's a lot. That's a lot, and I have to read the passages to you and the equation. You know how I just opened the Lotus?
Yeah.
At the beginning, I opened the Lotus on the entire all the verses of Job equating to this sign Virgo. So you have to read that. But I have it. If you just friend me at Everest on Facebook, I'll give it to you in your inbox, or you can join my group, Society of Indigenous Astrologers.
Is that just for blacks?
Society of Indigenous Astrology used to be just for black people. I allow any person of any race in there with this understanding. Astrology in that group is a safe place for black people to express astrology from their cultural views. You may not agree with that, but that is our safe place.
Can Claudia join?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Is Cuban indigenous?
I think so.
Yes.
What is
That's
it?
where I know the
Now,
whole.
But you asked me a question earlier about where I got that from. I was inspired by the Hopi prophecy.
Yo, I'm glad I looked
The Hopi
it up.
prophecy. Somebody called the
Yeah.
Hopi, the Hopi. The
Yeah.
Hopi Indians,
Yeah.
the prophecy. They anger God. Man anger God. Man
Yeah.
split God up into 4 different forms. A red man, yellow man, black man, white man. Okay?
Mm.
And man wanted to be one with God again. He says, well, I'm gonna give you these elements. And you're gonna guard these elements, and there's gonna be a certain time I'm gonna come back. And if you have taken care of these elements, I'll bring you all back together. Okay, kind of like the story of Babylon in a sense, right? So you can look up the Hopi prophecy online. So in the Hopi prophecy, he says to the white man gave fire, to the black man gave the most powerful element, water, to the yellow man he gave air, okay, and to the red man, the brown man, okay, he gave the earth, right? And the cardinal signs of the signs of action, and Aries is the first of them. I told you that Aries represents race, and if you look at all the cardinal signs, they kind of are racial signs in a sense, all right? So I said, well, wow. I looked at it and said, well, I think that Caucasians as a whole are not just Aries, but they're a fire element, because I looked at them as elements versus signs. And Aries is just the first of the fire elements, okay?
Mhm.
So I started to just do my research and look at the entire history, positive and negative. And you've seen that blog. I write positively about Caucasian races being pioneers, leaders, you know, people who are starters, and they get things started and they're fearless, things like that. But also, these are people who are warlike and have been barbarous, and conquering is their number one motif no matter where they go. This is an Aries thing. And then I go into the indigenous cultures that are still around are all worshipers of the earth, and they deal with herbs, and they deal with living off the earth, you know, the old ways, Capricorn, right? And then I said the yellow man, which you call the Asian, or it's the air people, and they primarily deal with, if you go into any Asian culture, there's going to always be high intellectualism. They love their calligraphy, their writing, their breathing, their meditation, and everything is highly cerebral in those cultures. When you go into the black culture, the black people, the water people, these are the healers, the nurturers. Our culture is the most forgiving culture of any culture. I mean, come on, we forgave slavery. Goddamn.
No doubt.
We
It
heal.
has to be civil.
Yeah, we heal through. We're always talking about let's heal. And we come, and our culture particularly comes out of a matriarch. So let's just give you some just really quick, but you have to read it to really go deep into it. So I started saying, wow, in the cardinal directions and the Hopi prophecy and the racial archetypes blended to create that blog. You know what I mean? And then afterwards, I had to substantiate that. So throughout my 11 years online, I have said, look, See when Mars is square this and we see this going on with Caucasians in the world, and see when the moon is in these signs right here, or aligned with these outer planets, we see things going on with the black race, especially the women in the race, and so forth and so forth. Recently, I posted another blog where I did research on the black woman suffrage and how they split from the woman suffrage and begin to create their own groups, okay? And then right after they created their own groups came the NAACP, all right? And I did the charts of some of the first woman to ever get a college degree, which was a black woman, okay? And all these powerful black women, Booker T. Washington's wife, Ida B. Wells, all these powerful, all these powerful black women. I didn't even know. That was blowing my mind. The first black women to get doctor's degrees, all this kind of stuff, and these organizations they formed. And when they formed these organizations, the water planets were in very auspicious angles and alignments. And so this goes to show that if nothing else, the United States black female culture is definitely water oriented. You understand? So now I am seeking to consolidate and show the concepts are real.
I have a question for you. Someone who is struggling with the book and looking at astrology and stuff and thinking that it was taught about, like Marcus can tell you, what did you tell me when we talked again? If I would have talked to you about the stars, you probably would have hung up on me.
Yeah, because I mean, it very clearly tells all of the, the people don't look up in the stars, don't follow them. That's what it says it several times, very specifically, about worship of other, idols or gods. And he specifically talks about looking up in the sky, which, as we know, ancient, in antiquity, that was their thing, right? Was looking up in the sky. As you go all over,
there was nothing
you look
to
at all of these that's true, right? You look at all this archaeology, you see that there's tons of mappings of the stars and all of these different historical structures and megalithic things. It's just all over the place.
So my question is, someone who is steeply in that belief, how do you suggest they start coming to this side of energy and understanding?
The stars don't lie, people do. Okay, so don't read the writing on the wall. Read the writing in the sky, because it said that the end times will be told by the signs and symbols in the sky. But listen, Uranus, the planet Uranus, which represents revolution, it also represents freedom. It also represents nationality. Okay, and on a lower level, deviancy. Okay, it went into the sign of Aries. Okay, when it did that, right before it did that, we did a show. We were doing predictions on that, and it squared Pluto in Capricorn. And we said this: when Uranus, the sign of nationalism and the sign of freedom, goes into Aries, the sign of race and races, and the races with actions and abuse and war and weapons, we're going to see a spike in hate crimes and racism and racism. And racism is going to become a nationalized motif. White people and other races are going to say, I have the freedom, Uranus, Aries, to be racist. It's my right.
I can see them coming out.
All right. And it's squared Pluto, death and murder in Capricorn, blacks or via government or the institution. And you saw a rise in police brutality, police killings, the system killing people, whether they were black or whoever, Latino or people who are underprivileged. Okay, the plutocracy getting away with murder, all right? And kill black people, murder black people. And we've seen that ever since, okay? So the stars don't lie, people do. Now that may be a harsh viewpoint of that, But the reality is it happened. We cannot deny that. When those planet configurations came into exact square, we were at the height of these murders. We were at the height of this stuff that was going on. Okay, we were at the height of white supremacy protests going on, marching in the streets, trying to match. You know, we were at the height that the Black lives, they didn't matter, because Saturn or Capricorn represents what matters. Right? The structure, what matters, the facts of what matters, right? And Pluto is the biological process, all right? So this is when we start saying Black Lives Matter.
I have a question for you. Well, not a question, but, well, you mentioned Jupiter and racism. We're going to be seeing another square. Uranus and Taurus is going to square Jupiter and Aquarius very soon, next year, 2021.
And the platform is morality. So Uranus going into Taurus is a revolution of morality. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
So what has been rooted will come to the surface, to the dirt. What's in the mud will come to the dirt, Taurus. All right. So, and this is why we're having not just the Black Lives Matter thing, but the LGBTQ, because Uranus rules Aquarius, and that is indicative of the homosexual lifestyle. Homosexuals. Or anything that's unorthodox, that's different, that's against the grain. And homosexuality is one of those motifs that fall into Aquarius, okay? And the water bearer, Zeus's cup holder, was also his lover. Symbol of Aquarius. Okay. All right. So, you know, we see
Wait a minute.
this
Wait. You just skipped over that, man. Now you ran over. What did you just say? The Aquarius.
The water bearer.
Was
the water bearer.
Uh-huh.
How you pronounce the name? Gwymenes, Gaymeles, I forgot. You look it up, but the water bearer, Zeus's cup holder, is Aquarius, the symbol of Aquarius, pouring out the water, pouring out the wine to the gods. Yeah. Okay. And the third place, we all talked about Zeus, Sagittarius. The third place is Aquarius, right? The lightning holder, right? But also, the third place is the cup bearer, the messenger of Zeus. See?
Wait,
so
no, you said the lover part.
Oh yeah, his cupbearer was his lover.
Zeus's cupbearer was his lover.
That's the part I was trying to back you up.
Oh yeah, that's in the myth. That's in the myth, bro. Zeus got busy.
Well, they are.
But it's a revolution of morality. What's at stake here is what is moral, what is right. And so everybody's fussing about what is moral and is right now. You know what I'm saying? This is right, this is wrong, this is moral, this is not. That is the main revolution that's really going on right now. And it's a revolution of finance stability and a revolution of sustenance. So it's the way we eat and deal with food and grow food and transport it and all that kind of stuff is changing. The way we deal with our moral structure and how we do that is changing on a national level, because Uranus is nationality, right? The way that we deal with finances and the financial upheavals that keep going on is changing. That's why we're switching to cryptocurrency and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Or Uranus, I told people to invest in cryptocurrency before Uranus got into Taurus. See? So they can reap the benefits of having invested in cryptocurrency. Had that happened, you have some money like I did with that. So you know, on and on and on and on. That square now that we're gonna have soon, all right, with Jupiter. Jupiter goes in. When Jupiter goes in, there's a square by degree, but it's also when Jupiter goes into Aquarius. Okay, it's going to be serious because Jupiter in Aquarius represents the exacerbation, the expanding of a revolution. Okay, so that is a global Jupiter revolution. Okay, so that's what we're looking forward to with that. But we're also looking forward to justice. We're also looking for justice to expand globally. My hope is that when Jupiter starts to transverse Aquarius, we come up with a universal constitution, a constitution of humanity.
The internet. It's gonna happen through the internet. They're gonna want to make us all together through the internet.
What does revolution look like as far as you talking about?
Jupiter and Aquarius, I think he meant like the revolution.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, what would revolution worldwide revolution look like?
I agree with the young lady. It's going to be a revolution online. And this is why they're trying to put so many rules in place about what you can say and what you can do online, a lot of the online policing, because they're going to they're going to break things down globally to nodal astrology. Oh, not nodal astrology, nodal internet, meaning that you have to purchase the internet of your city as well as your state, as well as your city. And if you don't have all three, then you don't have access to everything. You know what I'm saying? So that's what they're attempting to do now. Okay, and then you may have your personal intranets that you can create yourself. You know, with to store your own. So that's why the cloud-based technology is around. The cloud-based technology is going to blow up. So if you into investment, invest in that.
Actually, y'all are talking about Marcus's field right about now.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's about to blow up.
I'm in the IT field. Yeah.
That's about to blow up in a year or so. Definitely. So, but I think it's more of a revolutionary change of how the internet is done and how it's facilitated. That's what we're going to go. And then the square represents them charging you the finances. Like, oh, you want this information still? You used to have for free.
You got to pay money for it.
We have to pay more money for it now. You know, so that's how I see it as far as that revolution going on. What revolution looks like to me, what I desire revolution isn't what's happening. I desire a total breakdown in the system and a total revolutionizer of the consciousness of this nation and around the world. I think that enough is enough. I think that in every revolution that you've ever seen, people die. A revolution is Aquarius, all right? And a revolution is built on hope. Pisces in the second place of Aquarius, and Pluto is exalted in Aquarius, and there has to be death. It's a sad thing to say, but it's the truth. And
Pluto is exalted in Aquarius?
In my school of thought, yes. Pluto's exalted in Aquarius, and Uranus is exalted in Scorpio. It's called the Hermetic. It's called Hermetic exaltations. Okay. So what that speaks on is that in order to transform, a true revolution has to come. And we all know that blood is spilled in a real revolution. But think about the United States first revolution, okay? People died, and they were able to accomplish what they needed to do. And we have to start to adapt a mentality that we have to die for what we want, or our children and our children's children will be captured in this matrix.
Which is my favorite movie.
The Matrix, yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie. Matter of fact, speaking of that movie, I was reading Hopi Prophecy. Kind of sounded like that movie a little bit.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about a level and people going up underneath and coming back, and people, yeah.
We're presenting Marcus with the red pill right now.
Yeah. Actually, I was actually about to go to him and say, do you have any questions, Marcus, that you want to ask the brother for me?
Oh man, I have 1,000, but I think there's so many. I wrote so many notes. But I think it would veer off into too many directions.
Oh, well, actually, Reese, will you come back and answer Marcus' question?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have a problem with that? All right. Claudia? Go ahead, Marcus.
You want me to?
Okay. If you want to ask,
let me just throw something out there that I was thinking about as Reese was talking. You mentioned Carl Jung and psychology. He was like that's where modern psychology, really has grown because of, his thoughts and his brain essentially. And you mentioned that he was you know, he made a couple statements about astrology, right? And what he thought about it. I told Paul when he introduced this to me that, man, you know, the things that you're telling about me could change the world. I said, man, you sitting on information that's like, you know, how I mean, you know, there wouldn't be any violence because people would know how to cope with what's happening, or they'd be, you know, prepared, right? Or they would know, you know, they'd just be aware. You know, you talked about intuition. They'd be, you know, in touch with that. So my question is, you know, how does this connect with psychology in your opinion?
It's funny you should ask that. I have a few students who are psychology majors, and it's helped them out with their thesis, actually. We live in a society where our minds are broken and they need healing.
Yeah. I call it PTSS for Black folks.
So
post-traumatic slave syndrome.
This will help with that, because knowledge of self starts the path to healing, to knowledge of others, helping to heal others. So if a tornado hits your neighborhood and they come and knock on the door and say, hey, we need your help rebuild the neighborhood, you better say no, because you need to get your house in order first. And you'll never be able to help them fix that neighborhood if your house is not done. And that's where this comes into place to help. This helps you get your house in order, because you can't go out and help other people. You can't heal other people until your house is in order. So this helps you have knowledge of self. This helps you clean up your spirit. This helps you make your temple sacred, and all the other sacred parables about the body and being a temple and God within. This allows you to tune to the divine within. Okay, your Christ consciousness. All right.
Yeah, one would argue that the Bible says literally the same thing, right? I mean, without the religion, I mean, here's the thing. Listen, like I said before, you know, we can't really grasp Christianity, you know, after let's say Constantine, right? And what he did, right? He merged Roman paganism with Christianity and birthed this whole thing, right? That we follow today, right? Which I think is a major factor. But prior to that, the writings, that you know, that book, you know, I believe has talks about changing all of those different things that you just mentioned. You know, it's about morality. It is about connection with, you know, it's the only thing that I have that I can say that can tell me where I come from, and it gives me some form of hope, and that's obviously comforting. Your end would tell me that hey, you know, the earth is just a cycle, which I agree with. It is a cycle. I do believe history does repeat itself, but then that we're just in a constant loop of that's just, you know, a blob of this is just what it is, right? And so, you know, psychologically, that's not enough for me, right? And for me, you know, that word tells me, besides all the mumbo jumbo of the religious stuff, because I'm wholeheartedly against that. And I can go in more depth on that, but you know, what do you think about what I'm saying as far as, you know, that word also talks about the very same things that we're all talking about, or that is found in astrology.
Let me speak to that real quick.
I want to hear Fabrice too, though, bro. Me and you be talking all the time.
Yeah, but they don't know.
Go ahead.
Everybody else don't know what we talked about, though, bro.
No, I got you. Go
ahead. You know how, Reese, you said you threw the Bible in the trash?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I never physically threw it in the trash. I just stopped messing with it. But the deeper I got into astrology, I began to develop a different appreciation for that knowledge, because once you have the knowledge of the stars, you actually know where them stories came from. And
Absolutely.
You understand
the
And that's
three
why-
wise men
and that's why
following
I,
the star, right?
That's why I
Three
went back
wise
and
men.
got a new Bible, King James Version. That's why I went back. And I said, once I was an accomplished astrologer, I went back and got all those books, the Quran, the Torah. I went back, the Hadith. I went back and got all those the Buddha scrolls.
Why'd you go get them?
Because I realized by throwing them away, I had threw away gems. Now that I was an astrologer, I couldn't really understand them. I couldn't appreciate understand them in the mind, the vibration I was on at the time. You know, but since I was on a higher vibration, I can now pick those books up and gain from them the insight and the wisdom that was needed to make me a better person.
By the way, people don't really realize one of the reasons why the Matrix is one of my favorite movies is because you go through coming up out of something, you go through phases, and I think you kind of hinted to that with the throwing the book in the Bible in the trash, because once you start learning some knowledge, you kind of get pissed off at the people who taught you some bullshit.
Right. The people.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you equate the whole system and all that stuff with that word and not realize that, they were teaching the wrong word wrong.
The Hermetic exaltation of Neptune is in Leo. You have to love the ignorant. You have to show them compassion. Or you will be caught in a spiral of hatred and it will destroy you.
Claudia, you ever?
I had to do that myself. When I told you I got on there, I was really enthusiastic about astrology. I met all the races and all the different astrology groups. Yeah. And by the way, Afro Astrology, Society of Indigenous Astrologer, the International Society of Black Astrologer, Black Astrology, Black Sidereal Astrology, Black Astrotheosophy. These are all Black astrological groups. First and foremost, Cosmophysics Group, they were all created because of the racism in the other groups online. So we needed to create a platform for us to feel safe, to learn and to express how we thought not racism, but astrology was. I came up with a multi called Black Astrology, which got challenged by other Black astrologers. What is Black? Is it like Vedic astrology? Is it a system? You know, is it like Chinese or no? Black astrology isn't a system. Okay, it's an expression of culture.
Kind of like
that system and its experience of astrology through the Black cultural lens. That's Black astrology. So you may see me post, I am Black astrology. You understand? So because we have a lot of Black astrologers that still follow the traditional and elitist nomenclature, and if you're not following those circles, they kind of, try to put you in your place to become gatekeepers and try to put you in your place and tell you what's right and wrong. So we had to create those groups so that people could come and feel safe to express themselves through that cultural lens with astrology, okay? And I had to forgive those guys. I had to actually love them for the knowledge that they do have, and for the shit that they don't know, I had to Neptune their asses, ignore them. Okay?
Is that called Neptune?
And yeah, because you gotta understand something. What undoes aggression? Fighting. Fighting is Aries. Aggression is Aries. Going head to head like a ram is Aries, right? But what is the undoing? The 12th place of it, Pisces. Silence, ignorance. So you ignore them. You delete them. You block them. You ignore them. I see that post all the time. I still see that post, and I don't say anything anymore. Where before I would jump on that, you're wrong too, and I'll get into the debates with them, right? And I can show and prove my stuff works and your stuff don't. And I just realized, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to heal, not confront. Okay, I'm here I'm still learning myself, and I'm here to teach, not destroy.
Has that evolved from the writing of this paper till 2020?
Yes, and I learned other things like the cultural significance of ethnicity in astrology. Like, for instance, I say all Black people are Cancer. Well, if you follow the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction throughout the last 400-500 years, that's significant to the Black culture as well. You understand? I start to see that the Moors were very indicative of Sagittarius and Jupiter and their conquest. You know what I'm saying? I start to understand that the rate, the ethnicities follow the ages. So in the age of Aries, we had the Aryans, and the Aryans weren't all white; they were black. You know what I'm saying? You okay? So you had the black Aryans, you had the Olmec heads where were established during the age of Aries. You know, things of that sort. I started seeing things from an age perspective, from a wider perspective, from a sub-age, you know, the sub-ages. And I started saying, wow, this racial thing is not just limited to the four archetypes in which I discovered it was. It's all of astrology in different parts and different times. You understand? So that's how I evolved from, you know, oh, just white people are fire, or they're Aries. And if you follow Leo, Sag, and Aries, you'll be talking about the Caucasians. Well, you know, what we try to pin on Caucasians, their conquering attitude and their arrogance. If you go and find black people in the age of Aries, they were doing the same exact thing. Okay.
So it's the energy age, the age.
Energy of the age.
Yeah.
So the energy of the age has just as much to do with the conceptual constructs. Okay, has just as much to do with the universal consciousness of how these things manifest as well. So I advanced from that because I saw that. You know, I began to see that in a lot of things, and it began to change my perspective of how to deal with a lot of the racism that was online, which is very hurtful. Because I love astrology and I wanted to learn and be a part of a community. I thought I was naive. I thought by joining these astrology communities, I was joining a community of people of higher vibration, because astrologers were of high-minded people. And when I started to experience racism, especially a group called Political Astrology, that's ran by the Sambo astrologer by the name of Theo White. I will name your ass in a heartbeat, right? And a lot of the racist astrologers that were in there, because a lot of racist astrologers flock to the political astrology groups and the mundane astrology groups, because they deal a lot with national charts and things of that nature. But you'll find them there, you know, especially going there. I started delineating the chart of Trump, and I was making predictions with Trump coming true. I predicted that his best friend, I predicted that his closest advisors, his lawyers would turn against him, his sons would be indicted, all that kind of stuff I predicted. And they would call him, you're trash, and you hate America, and you're a porch monkey. Yeah, just like that. And those things came true from looking at his his chart. That I looked at his 26 degrees. I use 26 degrees of Leo at the ascendant. And when he goes to DC, he progresses to Virgo at the ascendant. See? And you look at that chart and you progress it to all the times where he made executive orders or came on TV and said some crazy shit. And you're going to see those transiting charts and those progressed charts match up to exactly what I was talking about. And they eventually put me up that group. Because I just couldn't take it anymore. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, well, fuck this, you crackers. And I started being just like that. You crackers and you rednecks and you Sambos and calling people names. And I realized they would bring me into their element. You see what I'm saying? And so I had to step back and say, you know what? That's not what I'm here for. I said what I had to say about Donald Trump. I made my predictions. They came true. I proved my astrology. I'm done. That's it. But it still exists. So I want the young people to know we do have places for you to come. Society of Indigenous Astrologers, Afro Astrology, International Society of Black Astrologers, Black Astrology, Black Astrotheosophy, Black Sidereal Astrology. These are places where you can go and be amongst people. And guess what? There are white people there too. But guess what? They love us. They dig us. They dig our culture and they agree with us, or they let us do our thing. Like when you're in that group and you're letting them do their thing. See? Mm-hmm. So this is a safe place for you to come, and I want your listeners to understand you can come there. And if you are not a black person, if you're not an indigenous, dark race, or whatever the case may be, but you want to come and see that culture express themselves astrologically and had that experience, then you're more than welcome. Just know this is our safe place, and we're there to express our culture in astrology, and that needs to be said. Black astrologers matter. Okay,
I might have to make a shirt like that.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
Bam.
Well, I don't know. I do custom shirts, Reese. That shirt you.
Oh yeah, well I need you to make me a couple of them because I want Black Astrology Matters. I want I Am Black Astrology.
Yeah, on my page.
I got a Black Power fist with all the signs going around them and the exaltations.
Look, this is me. I made this.
Okay.
I wear my brand everywhere I go. I don't walk out the house without.
We gotta do some business. We got some business then.
Yeah, Claudia, did you want to ask Reese anything before we get out of here?
No, I just want to thank you for your time, and I want to say that I've actually learned a lot. I'm gonna go Google the story of Job. I'm not super well versed in the Bible, but that comes with like the culture I grew up in. I mean, I lived in a communist island up until like the age of 7, so religion wasn't allowed. Which is interesting. My moon and Sag kind of like repels it, but I'm very interested in it because, when I came to this country, it was very much like, you pick a political party and you pick a religion, But,
wow. Okay. I got it.
Which one?
But it's true. It's true. And so, but I never vibed with any of them. And astrology
in Miami, by the way.
Yeah, I'm in Miami, Florida. I'm in the melting pot of the entire United States, which is very heavy over here right now. But
ground zero.
Yeah, but astrology like did it for me, and everything that you said about how it made you feel, I felt the same exact way. And I actually have spoke to one astrologer, and he actually told me that the astrology community was not very friendly, and I didn't believe him. I didn't believe he was white, but I was just kind of like, well, that's weird, because I thought the same thing. Like, astrologers should be high-minded people. I mean, like, we do this, like, you have to love astrology to do this, like, for real,
Yeah, so that's why I got into it. And I also started seeing other things, like, when it came to the Black heroes, there were no Black astrology delineating those charts. The charts of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, they'll tell you, oh, there are such and such rising. And you're like, okay. And you just flow with it because these are the elder astrologers who've been in tradition for years. But when I started testing those ascendants, I saw that they were wrong. My mentor rectified Malcolm X's chart to Scorpio ascendant, and I went behind him and tested him, what he did versus what they said he was before, a Sag or Taurus rising, or Malcolm's chart, Martin's chart, same thing with Michael Jackson. They tell you, oh, he's a Leo, he's a Pisces. Well, let me tell you something. Michael Jackson's head caught on fire. Okay, and he died because of the medicine that they gave him. Mess with his brain and his blood, right? So I'm just gonna give you a tidbit. Aries was in the 8th place of his death, all right, in injury, and he burnt half of his face, and he always got surgery on his face, right? Did he not do this? Okay, and if you look at his lifestyle, you put Virgo to descendants, start looking when he did the Pepsi Cola commercial, when Thriller came out, when he built Wonderland, all that kind of stuff. Virgo matches Virgo and the progression from Virgo, the secondary progression from Virgo, and the tertiary progression, okay, and the lunar progression from Virgo will show you that he's a Virgo at the ascendant, not a Leo rising, not a Pisces rising. So then I had to test like Whitney Houston, and I'm like, okay, Whitney is not a Capricorn rising, she's a Sag rising. And so then I start putting out the risers from my study. Oh my goodness, like Barbara Streisand, they were saying she was a Aries rising. I'm like, she's a Sag. And back and forth, because they hate. Like, if you go to celebrityastro.com, I'm like, who are this? How come no one ever questions these astrologers? No one ever put their work to the test. And if you do, you'll get a whole bunch of hate mail, okay? A bunch of haters or death threats, literally, because you're doing stuff like that. And I think it's sad because we're all in the same. If we were all race car drivers, I will tell you, okay, you're a race car driver. I got this new super over there. I want you to test it because I want you to let everybody know this is the fastest thing around. Don't take my word for it, right? Mm-hmm. We are on the same. So it is normal for contemporaries to test one another in the fields that they operate in. It is not just it's not just an ego thing. And so a lot of them take it very personally, and the racism comes out immediately because I'm a black man and I am intelligent and I do know what the fuck I'm talking about with astrology. It's an exception to me, and I test it. And I do a part of astrology a lot of them don't do. I test it. That's the only difference for me and 90% of the astrologers that I meet. They don't test it. They read a book. They equate to their chart and the few charts of people they know, but they never test it. They never test to see when Mercury hits their ascendant and it rules my third house and it hits that first house cusp by transit. Are third house matters coming to the fore?
Yeah.
True.
If Mercury hits the seventh house cusp in the transit or in the progress and it rules my third house, are third house matters manifesting in my relationships? You know what I'm saying? They're not doing this at all.
Reese, do you do personal readings?
I do personal readings. I teach.
Right.
I teach a basic course, a basic 5-part course. I have recently started to study and practice financial astrology.
Oh,
And
I'm sure for that one.
I have a student of mine by the name of Mr. Shabazz. He's a trader. He trades currency. He's been teaching me how to do it. So we've been trading. I've been teaching him astrology. He's been teaching me to trade currency and also to trade on the stock market. I've been using. I love trading currency the most because I find out the planet that rules the second house of the nation, and I use that to guide me and when to sell up or sell down on the currency. So and I made a major deal when Venezuela had that revolution with the petrodollar they had. I told people, I said they're not going to get rid of that dictator. And you remember Trump like, we're going to get rid of him. He got voted out. And America, they didn't get rid of him. And all the people dumped that money. I got it. So just like, I've been doing speculation astrology. I have a client that go to Vegas a lot, Atlantic City a lot, and I have a little system that I utilize that allows them to win more than lose. Not win big, not make a lot of money, win more than lose. And they've been winning more than they've been losing. And I've been trying to develop that system. And I'm reading a book now called Sports Astrology, which has helped me develop a new technique dealing with, betting on sports. I want to kind of migrate out of personal readings and just strictly do readings for business owners, people starting their own business, people who are investors, trading on the stock market, and people who are gamble and things of that sort. I kind of want to take my practice that way. And I have been, because I have, people who are realtors who are, in own businesses who are some of my reoccurring customers. They have me on kind of like, on tag. And I want to move towards that because the personal reads are taking a toll on my spirit.
Yeah.
I heard that. I kind of heard that.
Yeah, they're starting, for me now, being this long, and it's starting to take a toll on my spirit. I can't read it. I don't want to read another chart where I see someone's been raped, molested, or something's going to happen, and you tell them, you have to try to prepare them for it. And people don't take bad news the right way. So, I had a young lady. There was an incident. I saw some energy coming forward with Pluto-Mars conjunctions are not a joke, guys. Okay? Pluto-Mars conjunction, squares, opposition, and quincunx are not a joke. All right? Especially if that Pluto-Mars conjunction, square, quincunx, or opposition is happening in a sign that's ruled by a malefic. It's not a joke. So I saw tragedy coming. I didn't give it to her in the best words, I'll be honest with you. I tried to give it to her the best way I could. I'm a Libra, so I kind of trying to relate to her. I should have just gave it to her straight up, not shaken or stirred. But I gave her enough information to at least prepare for the weather. You can't make it rain. You can't stop it from raining, but at least you can put on your rain boots and your umbrella, right? And I gave her that. And she totally ignored what I said. And she got the brunt of this energy, which I knew she would. And it was just sad. She's a believer in astrology now, but I don't think that those type of events should put people in the mind of belief of astrology. So and it's just take this toll. A lot of people they what's going on with them, it kind of drains you, and then you have your own things that are going on. I look at my own chart. I'm scared to look at my own chart, by the way. So
You know what? Do you keep up with your own transits?
I do.
I don't.
I do what's called a number line.
Mm-hmm.
I keep up with it through a number line where I take graph paper like this.
All right.
I write down 0 to 29. I start with Virgo, the signs, but mine send it that way, and then I put in one color my natal planets, and then I put the sun and the moon and the transiting planets in different colors, and I track them day by day. And so when the sun is going to conjunct my natal planet here or there, or it's going to square this and that, kind of like helps me understand what's going on. Also, I keep what's called a personal solar calendar. So 30 days from my birthday is my sextile days. 90 days for my birthday is my square week. 120 days or 240 days for my birthday are my trine weeks. One's my lower trine, my personal trine, the other my upper trine for my public trine.
Hey, brother.
I do that personal calendar to kind of give a forecast of the energy in my life. So I know that around my solar return, that's the spring. 90 days from that is my personal summer. 90 days from that is my
By the way, your Virgo rising is showing right about now.
Oh yeah. I got lists and charts for days for my own stuff. And for my sons, for my children. I keep a journal. I have a book for each of my children of their planetary stuff because I want to know what's going to happen to my children before it happens. I told my daughter, I said, "Oh, you about to break up with your boyfriend?" I was so happy about that, and she did. I was so happy she got rid of that jerk. But she was like, "Nah, Dad, you just try to maybe break up with him." Yeah, I'm like, okay, whatever. And she broke up with him. Yes, sir. But I keep up with that with my children. I'm teaching astrology to my children, to my 7-year-old right now. You know, he knows each one. He knows two keywords for each planet.
How do you feel about this statement? I told people you should parent to your kid's chart.
There are different ways you can do that. Like for parent, if you want to know the best way to parent your children, take your 4th place cusp and put it to the ascendant after you were born. Or take the 4th place ruler and put it to the ascendant and put it at the time that it comes to the ascendant the first time after you were ruled. And that builds you a blueprint of how you should parent. It gives you the pros and the cons of your parenting style, okay? Or you can take the ruler of your 4th place and do a technique called chain of dispository and build a tree from that to show you how to parent a good way. And you can do that with anything, parenting, finances. You want to do your finance chart. This is the best way for your finances to flow. You can do it that way, or anything, partnership, the type of partners you should be dealing with. Put your 7th place ruler to the ascendant, or put 7th place. It's called the Cosmopov. You heard that song, the Cosmopov. That's what the Cosmopov is. The Cosmo point of view is putting the planet of the subject matter to the ascendant and reading that chart to give you insights into how to manifest those things positive and how to prepare for them negatively. So I have several techniques. I have a law of attraction lot that I created. My favorite one is the law of attraction blog, because law, Jupiter, attraction, Venus, right? So I said law of attraction. So the midpoint between your Jupiter and Venus degree is your law of attraction degree. All right. Whenever that degree goes across one of the angles, it's a time for you to plan. So if you're going to go to the casino, if you get married, if you're going to go to a job interview, you're trying to see what time of day that it will go across the cusp that can correspond to something that you really want to do and manifest. And you should be manifesting just like the law of attraction. And I did that because I was disappointed, just thinking it will come, it was never happening, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to see how the law of attraction and astrology would mix. And I started, memorizing the Hermetic principles and applying astrological energy to it. I came up with the law of attraction degree, and I came up with also a lot of law of attraction when you add sun, you add your sun degree, your moon degree, plus your ascendant, plus the midpoint of your Jupiter, Venus, or you can add Jupiter, Venus, and you come up with your law of attraction lot as well. So check out that blog, the LOA degree, and practice it. Use it for those who like to use the law of attraction, and you see how that's another technique that I actually converted and started to use people who were going out gambling,
Yeah.
and it kind of works, you know, as well. So
I have to check that out because I actually subscribe to the Law of Attraction.
oh, you'll love that blog then. That's actually a blog I wanted to do at a lecture I got invited to for the UAC. It never came to fruition, but they wanted I got an opportunity through Sam Reynolds to do a night owl lecture, 45 minutes, and I think it was Seattle at the time. But it didn't work out, and it gave me 3 topics to choose from. That was one of the topics I wanted to do, but they kind of wanted me to do Star Wars and astrology, and I felt like one that was demeaning to me. I'm not going to come to Seattle to do Star Wars and astrology when
Star
I know
Wars the movie?
yeah, the astrology of Star Wars.
Mm.
Going to the film, and I was like, oh. But the law of attraction that could help people. We could actually test this. We could actually, you know, have fun with this, and it didn't come to fruition, so it doesn't matter. But that's a blog I'm really proud of. I actually did a video too on YouTube about it. If you go to Ever Reese on YouTube, you'll see it.
All right. So tell the people how they can contact you, get in contact with you.
Mostly I'm on Facebook. That's my platform of choice. So it's Ever Reese, EverReese. You can friend me there, or find me at Ever Reese Twitter, Instagram, Ever Reese everywhere.
All right.
Same name for all the different platforms. If you want to email me, you can email me at maurireese@gmail.com, AMAURIEESE@gmail.com. I do personal readings. I charge $120 for my personal readings. I rectify your chart or verify. So if your birth time is right, we just verify it. But if it's not, I'm gonna rectify it. Now I'm gonna verify your chart. I'm gonna give you an entire face reading, and then I'm going to give you a 2-week forecast. And we're gonna keep in contact for the 2 weeks forecast. And then once that's done, you can take that time of birth, if it's rectified, and go to any astrologer that should be able to predict with it. But that's what I do as far as that. I also build blueprints, house blueprints. I do horary astrology, so I do ask questions too. I also teach, and I charge. Actually, if you join my groups, any groups that I'm a moderator at or administrator, I charge simply $120 for the lesson versus $200 for the lesson, which is a great deal. And a lot of people say, why do you charge the same for reading for your lesson? Because I prefer that you learn astrology for yourself.
Teacher man.
So I charge the very same price. So you can get a reading from me for $120, or you can learn how to do it yourself for $120.
You're trying to teach them to fish. I say you're trying to teach people to fish.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's my give back. You know, I'm not going to charge you $300-$400 for all this craziness. You know, that's my give back. And, you know, I love astrology, but that's not how I would prefer to make my money. I prefer to make my money the way I do, you know, writing comic books. You know, I prefer to make my money in the IT field, which I do, or the truck driving field, which I'm in as well. And astrology is just my love. It's my lifestyle. You know what I mean? So, you know, but I want people to learn it, and I teach very basic lessons, and I guarantee you, every lesson you learn from me, you can utilize it the moment I teach it to you. So you don't have to wait a year, you don't have to wait 6 months or 2 weeks, you don't have to do a whole, you still have to practice it, but you'll be able to utilize it the day we get off the phone. Before we get off the phone, you'll be reading right then and there.
All right. I want to thank you, brother, for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with us.
Oh, just one more thing before I go. So I'm a comic book writer, right? My new comic book, Starfall, why is my precious? It's called Starfall, The Undoing. Okay, look me up, get the book. But here's why you want it. It's an astrologer. The moment I thought of Starfall, I went to the chart, I pulled the transit chart, looked at it, and I wrote Starfall astrologically. So the sun in Aquarius was a group. So it was an ensemble piece with different heroes, right? So even the cover you'll see Empress Ty shooting the bow, right? And you'll see the one guy, the alien on there. Well, that's the Sagittarius rising, okay? So every page you turn is going to be like that chart. the actual chart of it. And I created the heroes with birth times and charts and stuff like that too. So it's an astrological, it's an astrological piece of work, artwork. Okay, and I love it, and I create all of my stories that way now. I use astrology in all of them. I don't blatantly use astrology, but I use a time of birth for them at the moment I think of them, and I write and construct the stories based upon it, and I also market them based upon that chart. So, Starfall: The Undoing.
And I am locking you in for another show. Right?
Yes.
All right. Claudia, you got anything to say before we get out of here?
Oh, I'm very grateful to have met you, Reese.
I am too. Thank you so much.
How about you, Marcus?
Yeah, this is very interesting. I still have I got 1,000 questions still.
Marcus, get those books first. Read those books first and come back to me with those questions.
Sure, I got you. All right.
I want to thank everybody for joining me for episode 17, Race and Astrology. I want to thank Reese for joining me. Reese's group is Cosmophysics, right?
Yes, that is the School of Astrology at Kamala Cosmophysics. The group that I manage is called SIA, Society of Indigenous Astrologers.
All right.
It's on Facebook.
And I want to get a shout out to your mentor, Raz
Akul.
All right.
The Grand Cosmocrat.
Yeah, I just found out we live in the same city.
He's about to do a lecture down there.
Yeah.
I think called like Return of the Gods or something, right?
Yeah. Also, anybody living in the Atlanta area, don't forget my boy Dave with Road Ready Mobile oil change. And I want to thank everybody for joining me, Marcus, Reese, Claudia, and everybody know how I end this. Know thyself and balance your energy.
Round the clock, I feel your heart stop, make your body rock. These niggas pulling G's, moving round the clock. Niggas is dropping like acorns or like leaves falling out of trees. Niggas still gon' bleed, so I'ma keep dumping in the streets. Don't let it come back to me, cause this show gon' be held to play. Mama told me it would happen, but she didn't know today. Anyway, I got to make my pay, pimpin' these streets. You can say it's fucked up, but us niggas gotta eat. Never accept defeat. If you do get lost in the talk, gripping your bag to your body, cause you dripping on sauce. What's the cause of all this bullshit? Madison murder. Niggas took 50 shots to his body, laying cold on the girdle. Taking these trips to the malls, I'm seeing bodies with a lead. I ain't no average motherfucker, got them V in my dreads. I feel your heart stop, make your body rock. These niggas pulling G's, moving round the clock.